This one. Okay, it looks like we're live. All right, very good. So this is the monthly chamber chat, and my name is Nancy Peltonen, president of the Greater Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce. And today I have a guest, and that would be Tom Graver. He is our director of marketing and sales. And so we are excited, and memberships. Well, yes. Marketing sales, yes, memberships. So we're excited to have him on here because he has done a lot of event planning. So our topic today is about events and how you can use events to promote your business, to have some growth. And also we want to talk a bit about running a successful event. I think we've all had times where we've, thought it was going to be the best event we've ever thought of, and then no one shows up. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can use events to bring more awareness to your business, and then, like I said, some of the details of planning an event, because I think a lot of times it's the details that can get lost in the shuffle. So we want to make sure that you're going to be successful. So let me start off first, though, with two things that we have going on. First of all, a very big thing is our Peru trip, and the Chamber is going to Peru, and that is in May of 2018. And so for $23.99, that is your airfare, all the tours, everything's included. You can join us, and it is May 15th, and it's 8 days. So if you've always wanted to see Machu Picchu, call the Chamber, and we'll get you more details on that. I think it's going to be rather exciting. That's a place I've always wanted to go. And then we have coming up here at the Chamber, our Leads group is always the second and fourth Monday of the month. And then our the 24th, we have our ribbon cutting with I'm sorry, let me see. Nope, no ribbon cutting right now. I read that wrong. It's Winning the Holiday Marketing Frenzy. Richard and Sherry Martin are moving it to a lunch and learn on the 24th, 11:30 to 1 here at the Chamber. And then the next day we have our after hours mingle at Carrabba's. So that is going to be...
Tomorrow we have a ribbon cut in the after hours mingle at Broken Barrel.
The T-Mobile? Yes, that is tomorrow. And that is not on my little note, so thank you for saying that. Yes, we have our ribbon cutting at T-Mobile on Malabar Road, and that is 4 to 6. And then afterwards, we're going to Broken Barrel because, unfortunately, that is one of our chamber partners, and they had a lot of damage due to the hurricane. They lost all their food, about $50,000 worth of food. So we want to support our local business. So that will be tomorrow. And then we have our Brevard Business Professionals, and that's on the 31st. We are back to Larson Motorsports on Palm Bay Road. So Lisa Kreitz, she invented the shower shirt, and she's going to be sharing her entrepreneurial experience with us. And that is from 8 to 9:30. So if you can join us for that, that would be terrific. And that's it for this month. And then our guest speaker coming up for November the 1st is Tom Campbell. He's the Director of Innovation for Harris Corporation. So that's going to be fabulous. That's at our Life Care Center, and that's always the first Wednesday of every month. And then for you, and it doesn't have to be just small entrepreneurs, we do have our Tabletop Expo coming up. It's for businesses to have a chance to have a vendor table, showcase their materials, and have more time to talk one-on-one with other business partners. So that's going to be at the Rialto Hilton on the 8th. Tables are only $50, very inexpensive. And so then we'll have appetizers, drinks available. So it'll be a nice evening of networking and, spending time with the other fellow chamber partners. So that's our main things coming up. And we're hoping Shannon is going to join us. She is going on vacation. So she is supposed to be landing at 1 o'clock. So we haven't seen her pop up here yet. But hopefully she'll be joining us shortly. And we'll see if, we have another, okay. So if you're wondering what I'm doing, I am not Shannon, who can multitask through everything. So she always looks amazing, like she's got nothing going on. She's just cool as a cucumber, but you know me and technology. So we'll see how this one goes. But we want to start off then talking about event planning then. So if you are a business like let's say a financial planner, you might want to do a lunch and learn where you can, invite people to find out more about financial services, what your company offers. You can go into details about your programs and your services. We have a lot of businesses that kind of have to take more time to describe what their businesses are. We all say you have to have your 30 seconds and your 1 minute elevator pitch, but there's a number of businesses that obviously require more time to talk about what their business is all about. So by having an event, let's say it's a lunch and learn, they have more time to have Q&A, explain, what's going on. And actually it helps them refine their elevator pitch, because by the questions people ask, it means that they're not answering those questions that they want to know. So sometimes you can add that into your elevator pitch. So always a great idea to have those. I'm thinking of a number of our members, let's say Marty Ward, Shannon with her Business Acceleration Summit. These are people that continually have events and are bringing their knowledge to the community. And so they have to go through this every time.
Right. I think they practice, they get a question might come and they have a paragraph of a way of answering it. And as they're speaking to answer the question, the person that's listening, you can see that they tune out so they get to the point faster.
Right.
And then they learn that elevator pitch. And then they realize if I use these words, I maintain their attention longer.
That's true. And so let's start from the very beginning then about planning an event, because you have to start with, first of all, why you're doing it. What's your reason for having the event? Because that really does then drive the event. Who the event is for. So who your target market is, where you're going to have it, and when. And obviously these are all the basics of doing an event, but they're the ones that sometimes we don't take the time to consider. And then it's, once you're into it, you're like, okay, why isn't this either being successful or not coming across the way I thought it would? It's because you didn't sit down and do the basics first. So, one of the things that you want to look at is, okay, so if you're organizing the event, so why you're doing it, is it for a charity? Is it for awareness? Is it
budget driven? Is it sponsor driven? Is it theme driven?
Right.
I mean, what is the essence of it? Yes.
Right. And so it's your why will drive your decisions. And then who is the event for? I mean, it could be like, woohoo, I just want to have some fun, invite my friends. But, if you're a business, then obviously you want to see, okay, who in the business community? Is this more of a tech-oriented event? Is this more of a nonprofit event? Is this kind of open to all small businesses? Are you looking at a higher event where you're looking to get business leaders in the community out to it? You have to look at. Are
you trying to promote a facility? Is your event at a place that it doesn't really matter what the event is? You just got people to come there and walk in the door.
Right.
A lot of different reasons.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like our after-hour mingles, we do those because we want to bring people to the business to get more exposure for the business. So that's one of the reasons why we might do an after-hour mingle at, let's say, Carrabba's or the Wild Mantle, or we've had them at Texas Roadhouse. And so, yeah, that can be one of the reasons why we have them too. And that gets into, so where is the event taking place? So if it really is just because you want to bring exposure to that business, then that's your where. That's where you're having it. But if you're having an event, okay, so we just had our Space Coast Symposium. We were bringing people throughout the entire county. So, we looked at being strategic. Okay, let's have it right off 95 because they're coming all the way from, well, some came from Orlando, but from Titusville down to Sebastian. You want to have it easy access. That was like one of the reasons we made that decision. It was bringing in more people than just our general population from the chamber. So once again, we were looking outside of our immediate area.
So what is your audience? So that answers that question.
Right.
We want to have an event. An important factor of this event is our audience. Let's make it easy for them to come. That's why we chose that location.
Correct. And then often, and for us, we're also going to use a chamber partner. So you want to make sure that, okay, so what event would best fit that facility? You know, if we're trying to move around. For our mayor's breakfast, well, with that one, we have the mayors come from Titusville down to Sebastian. We'll go over to the Crown, because then everybody can come up A1A. It's easy access. Then you can, you know, it's because it's throughout the county. Then you want something more central.
People like to go to the beach,
and they like to go to the beach. So that's always, yeah, that's always a nice point. So that's, you know, some of the reasons why we choose where our event is going to be. But sometimes it's logistics. I mean, when, you know, I did a really big one, it was called Walk a Mile in Your Shoes. We needed a big facility. So we ended up at Melbourne Auditorium, because in our region, you know, your ability to have certain events is on the access to large enough facilities. We do not have a convention center here in Brevard County. So if you're looking to have really massive events, the number of locations are limited.
Like they have a loading dock. So Melbourne Auditorium has a place for a truck to back up, heavy things to be wheeled in and out. So it's a factor of that particular event. Or you might want electricity. You might want a building or a room that has lots of outlets, or at least ability to bring in portable generators and run wires to support that event. Or if electricity and load-in and heavy stuff's not a factor, then you throw that out of the way and you go back to what ambience do you want.
Well, and that's another good point, is the ambiance. So when we were having it at the Melbourne Auditorium, I mean, it's a great facility, but it's not always the prettiest place. It's not like a hotel that, you know, has nice padded walls and nice lighting and chandeliers kind of thing. So with that, we brought in up lighting. We had to have drapery brought in.
Which is expense.
Yeah, so that's
what you might save in venue expense, you're going to pay in support expense.
Exactly. So these are all things that you have to think about when you're doing an event. And then also the timing, like when you're going to have it. I think you'll realize here in Brevard County, you can practically go to 3-4 things a day. There's always something going on, and there's a lot of fabulous charities. And so you want to make sure that you're not competing with another charity or another event, because people have their, you know, who they want to support. So if you know those are who your target market is, you don't want them having to choose between your event and another one. So sometimes it's difficult to know if you are going to be competing with another, for us, another chamber or another event going on. We try and do research, call each other ahead of time. You know, you don't want to try and cannibalize off of somebody else and take away from their event. But it is difficult. And you also have to look at, okay, well, we have hurricanes here in Florida. So what's going to happen if you spend months planning an event and a hurricane hits? You know, that was, our event was September 22nd. The hurricane had hit September 10th. It was one of those, do you keep doing it or do you cancel? You have to make those decisions as well. And then if you do everything in season, so when snowbirds come down and you're looking at between, you know, like December to April, okay, there's 95 different events going on all the time. Are you going to really be competing with so many others that your event gets lost?
Yeah, and kind of what you're saying there is, if you do plan an event in this scenario in a hurricane season, and if your event is complex, many moving pieces, many partners, it's better to have a really good point person. So let's say a hurricane comes off Africa, everyone sees it, everyone starts to become concerned. Instead of 10 people going 10 directions, it's good to have one point person that's kind of touching base with the primary players. Is this possible? Is it not possible? At what point are you concerned? And let's go back to a generator thing. If you are partnering with a company that's supposed to give you a generator, it's not even a question of can they bring the generator to you. It's that their inventory has to go to other places.
Right.
And at some point that has to be committed for a government agency probably a week prior to a hurricane even hitting. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of looking at timeline. So again, in this scenario, one person kind of being the director of those decisions is so much helpful than 10 to make sure that it works for everybody.
Right, and it's making the decisions quickly enough because you always know with events things are going to happen. So let's say First Friday by the Bay, the city knew that they were going to have their resources tied up and planning for the Hurricane Irma coming. So they were battening down hatches. They had all their team really working on making sure their facilities were going to be okay. So they canceled First Friday. I mean, that came out and said, yeah, we're not going to do that this month. It's just detracting from the work we need to do. So, making the call on events ahead of time so that people are and having a rain date because, the Melbourne Chamber, they had the fishing tournament and high seas came up. Those are things you can't really prepare for. So they had, an alternative kind of like rain date, as we call it, because you just never know what could come up. And you want to make sure that, that was one of the problems with the hurricane because a lot of the hotels were affected. A lot of weddings got canceled. A lot of events had to be shifted because the facilities weren't able to accommodate them anymore. So
Kind of have to look at what's contracted versus what's in kind or being volunteered. Not that there's any difference. Something that's on a contract, if it's a new person, they may get a little weary of I have to be there. I have to be there to support the event because it's contracted. And if there's nothing written in there that talks about an act of God,
right.
Then there's a domino effect backward of their families and maybe their neighbors and grandparents that they need to support and conversation about that versus an in-kind person that, okay, they're supposed to bring a bunch of gift baskets, but they're not gonna because
right.
they're in Michigan.
Right.
It just affects the event, but it's all communication.
Right. And this, I mean, we're talking about hurricanes, but up north it could be snowstorms or, you could have flooding, you could have wildfires. I mean, so much is happening within our society anymore. So you just have to have contingency plans. But the content is still king for organizing the event. It's the content that will drive the people there. It's what the event is all about. So whether it's, and you want to be consistent with your theme. So if it's a theme of, let's say, purses, that's always near and dear to my heart. We even had cookies that had little purses that were decorated on there. We had cupcakes that had chocolate purses put in them. We had a silent auction that had purses on it. It was called Purses with a Purpose. So being consistent to your theme. If you're trying to have so many themes, sometimes it gets confusing. If you want people to dress up, then you don't want to say, come as you are, or you could wear a costume, or you want to say, okay, this is an 80s theme. We want everybody to dress, you could be Cyndi Lauper, you could be the Poisons band, you could be, Big Hair, Madonna, all those type of things. But you want to keep that theme consistent. And that has to be part of all your messaging, all your marketing, all your posts. You want to have your theme well established of what it's about. And you want it to align with the audience that you're trying to reach. You don't want to pick a theme that is not going to be important to your target market. And you want to, they always say you want to under promise and over deliver. So you want to make sure that what you're doing is going to provide more value than people ever expected. You don't want to promise the world and then, you fall short. And sometimes that happens, absolutely. But, you also want to be flexible so that, you can kind of change things up. And I think that's one of the things that we do well here.
The wow factor.
Thank you. And I think that's one of the things that we kind of do well here is being flexible, being able to go with the flow. And when things come up, you can change things up. I know that when we were doing the Space Coast Symposium, Congressman Posey at the last minute found out he was going on at Kodal. And so he was going to South Korea and to India, and he was our keynote speaker. So here we had all the fabulous leaders of the community, and we were going to end up with our congressman being our final keynote speaker, and he wasn't going to be there. So then you're like, okay, now what do we do? Reaching out to partners.
And part of that is with keynote speakers. And in that perspective, I mean, you book a keynote speaker, could be 6 months, could be a year in advance. You want to either have a contact either directly to that keynote speaker or at least to their handler or first or second assistant. And then 3 months out, kind of, hey, just sending it, maybe you make a flyer, maybe you've done something marketing wise So you want an excuse to kind of touch base with that keynote speaker instead of the obvious point of, are you still going to be there? You don't really want to say that, but you come up with a reason. Hey, here's the flyer we made for you. Do you like it? And then they respond. You're like, okay, 3 months out, we're still good. And then, maybe 2 weeks out. Hey, our attendance is, we're right where we were supposed to be, and then any kind of response tells you, yep, we're still in line. But if you're not getting a response, and then it could be he throws a trip and he's gone, or something happened, and the sooner that you realize that, the more time you have to come up with a backup plan.
Well, and I also think that's one of the things you need to realize when you are planning an event and you're having keynote speakers. When they're public figures like politicians, if a crisis happens, they are not, most likely they're not going to make it. You know what I mean? Like the governor, we had reached out to him for the symposium. He was around the States, dealing with Irma. So, we knew, and we actually knew ahead of time, but, we knew then that he definitely wasn't going to be able to make it. Because sometimes they'll say, if he's able to, he will show up. But so that's one of the things that you have to make sure you have a backup. And people get sick. I mean, things happen. So I had an event where Kalumba Bush, Jeb Bush's wife, was going to come because she was the head of the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence's board of directors, and so she was going to talk about domestic violence, and her mother got ill, so then she wasn't able to come. So then once again, it's your contingent plan, your plan B. Then what do you do? And
in that case, did she tell you? So you had, or did you just find out?
We just found out like the day of. So then you're like, okay, now what do we do? So that's kind of a scramble, and sometimes that happens, and hopefully your guests will understand, and you'll have other things going on, so that won't be the be all, like, your event is then done.
So what we're saying is you have a plan, but kind of in the back of your mind, kind of have a backup plan.
Absolutely.
Always.
Yes. Okay. So let's move along then to knowing the value of your events, because that will make your negotiations. If you're trying to do an event, let's say that we're going to talk really about doing events on shoestring budgets. We'd like to say we have 100,000 to go to an event. That's probably the exception rather than the rule for most of our business partners. So it's like, okay, how can we do this for free or very low cost? So you have to understand the value of your event. So consider who you're trying to reach, if you are trying to negotiate, so your sponsors, what our audience, their message is going to get across to. You, want to know what access is going to be provided, because obviously the people coming to the event, the people that are going to see all your marketing, knowing the value of what you are providing. And sometimes I think we don't realize, how incredible the events can be. And then other times we overestimate what that value is and we charge too much, and then you don't get the response. So kind of evaluating, what you see as the value and who's really going to do well by participating with you, by partnering with you. And then it really helps when you're going in to negotiate, because, we like to make sure when we talk to hotels, when we do our mayor's breakfast, you're going to have all 60 mayors of Brevard County here and a lot of the people that work in the different cities. So for a hotel, that might be, they're willing to work more with you because they realize all of those different cities put on events, and they might have their mayor's ball, or they might have a mayor's breakfast, or so this is their opportunity to showcase their facility, and they might give you a better price than, an event that might not have that kind of prestige or have that audience, or how many attendees you had. Well, I had an event that had 340 people coming to it, and the hotel actually said to me, you get some of the real fundraising professionals of Brevard County at that event. We want to showcase our hotel. They would go all out with food and their hospitality, unbelievable. But then, so I started to realize the value of what our event was bringing to them as a partner.
Right. So, and kind of what you're saying also is, if you were at a prestigious hotel, you can, proactively invite the general manager or the front office person or a staff person, even set them at a head table, or give them at no cost to them that exposure
Right.
to be with those kind of people, because it's going to pay out in the long run, versus, you could kind of be mean about it and say, look, I'm paying to rent this room. If you want to come, you have to buy a
Right.
ticket.
Right.
And that's not going to go over very well. It might make you some money, but it's something like that.
Right.
That can be formal, well planned, or that can be just something that you put on your notes when you know you're going to be at the podium and you're kind of gearing yourself up to speak. And part of your intro could be, hey, how about that chicken breast? Wasn't that delicious? And just, give a shout out to the chef.
Right. So focusing on the value of your event when you are sitting down then to negotiate everything from the venue to your flowers, to if this is going to be part of your event, if you need audio-visual equipment, if you need printing done, all of this is all going to take time for you to negotiate, and we're looking to have things low or no cost. So you want to listen, find out what the person's looking for. So if it's a printer, they may do printing for free, but they want their name on the bottom of the program book, and that's great. That's if you can make those relationships. So find out what they're looking for, and be flexible, because they may come up with something like, let's say, a banner. They may not, let's say, be able to print your postcards or your posters or your flyers, but they might say, well, how would you like a banner? Or what about a step and repeat? Those are amazing. And if you can brand yourself then to have that, it may be something you weren't thinking about, but that might be something that they're able to do. Posters.
And even to that point, you have the leader, the person that's making those actual decisions in an office maybe miles away, and maybe at the event is a handler, and that person might say, my instructions were to put one of these at each plate or table.
Right.
And they really can't think of anything else beyond that. That's what they were told to do, and that's what they need to do. And you have to allow that to happen.
Right. Yes. Being flexible is the key word when you're running an event, because it never goes as planned. So you have to be like, okay, let's go with the flow. This is what it is. There's nothing you can do now. You can't worry. You just have to. But if you really plan ahead of time, then you kind of have different contingencies in your mind. So then when you're going to negotiate, obviously we want to barter. That's one of the things we want to do. And like we said, the value of your event. So if you know that you're really reaching out to, let's say, Health First, who likes to get out in front of a large group with their health plans, they may want a festival. They may want to be at First Friday by the Bay or the Chili Cook-Off, where they know they're going to have 400 or 500 people wandering through the event. An event where you may only have 20 people might not be an event that they want their name associated with. And you also have to look at the event too. If you're having, let's say, a shooting competition, there might be some organizations that aren't interested in having their name associated, and others that really want to be part of that. So knowing what your event is and, what group you're trying to reach really makes a huge difference.
Which leads back into how you started earlier, the theme.
Right.
Sticking with the theme.
Right.
It resonates even down into this as well. Some people want community-based, community give-back type events.
Right.
You'd be surprised at the number of sponsors that will throw thousands of dollars at that, because back to their line, it's a line in an Excel spreadsheet to a corporate executive of, we did this for the community.
Right.
Oh, good. Okay, that much. Let's do that again next year. Keep building.
Right. And when you're thinking of venues, think outside the box, because sometimes we just think, okay, a hotel, a convention center, but we did a casino night at a car dealership. So they brought their cars out because what it did was bring so many people to their car dealership that were wandering around the lot and seeing their cars that may never have gone there before. So, looking at different places, we've done quite a lot with Riverview Senior Resort Living. We've done a number at Wild Manta, local venues that are not necessarily something that might pop first in your mind, but that are great locations
And
and great partnerships.
you'd be surprised, at an event at a car dealership, some people that are driving their own personal car that's 5 years old, needs new tires.
Mhm.
Like, this is so far beyond my reach to think of a new car. But if you're having an event, you'd be surprised at the people that would attend. And then I did an event at a dealership, kind of thinking that same thing. And then I always follow up with my venues and people post event. That's just as important as pre-event, is
Right.
following up and asking questions. And I said, "Did you sell any cars?" Expecting the answer to be no.
Mhm.
And the guy said, "Yeah, we sold 4
Wow.
that night." And it's just pretty amazing. And then
Right.
make a note, remember that. And then 10 months later, when you want to come back, say, "Hey, yeah, you remember we sold 4 cars last year. Let's do it again."
Right, right. And that's Harley Davidson is a great location. They are very much for helping the community, and they are wanting to bring different customers to their location because they're looking to sell Harley Davidson. So, that really can make a huge difference on the venue that you choose. Also, when you're looking at your keynote speakers, something that, we sometimes think we have to look outside or get that massive, huge, like they've been on TV speaker, but we have fabulous resources here in the community. And if you can get, free speakers that will come to your event. I know Shannon has the Business Acceleration Summit and does a phenomenal job. And she brings amazing speakers. And some are local, some are from out of the community, but all are terrific. And so she looks at building these relationships so that they will come and reciprocate, and she can speak at some of their events. And I remember that we were looking at having Nicole Brown Simpson's sister. She was speaking after the whole O.J. Simpson trial. It was $10,000 to have her come, and you're like, for a little agency, there's just no way we could afford it. And so, that's something you have to look at. Will having that spectacular speaker bring in more money? And if yes, then you can do the budget and make sure that it's going to be profitable.
But
But
back to your even negotiating as well.
right.
So yeah, it's $10,000. Maybe that's just to get the conversation started. But maybe if you say, "Look, how about we'll give you 2,000, and we'll put you in a really nice hotel. We'll take you out the night before. We'll pay for your airfare," which, because you have a relationship with the airport, is going to be no cost.
Right.
And the hotel you're putting them in is no cost because they support your group. So really, it's negotiating.
Right. And all of that, because sometimes it's those little extra perks that can get people here. For others, that is part of their contract. So it's 10,000 plus their travel expenses. But, that's something that you have to look at. So, but negotiation is the key. And, you want to make sure that you're flexible, that they may throw out something else that you hadn't even thought of. So be open to other resources. Now, when it comes to doing your event, then you want to make sure that your marketing materials and you're making it easy for people to sign up for your event. So, sometimes we want to have everything on our flyers and they're so wordy that people pick them up, and we have an attention span of gnats now. So if they're not grabbed by that first line, they're not going to read more about the event. So make sure that you're having not a lot of clutter on the page, that it does have a great theme that pops out, that you have a call to action on it. So whether it's
It also could mean that you're trying too hard. If your flyer has a whole bunch of information,
right,
the perception may be, "Look how much stuff they're putting on there. Maybe we shouldn't go."
right. And I kind of had that decision when we were doing the symposium, because really there were so many amazing people that were coming. It was, we did the panel sessions. and there were 5 people in each panel, and so then it got really long, but it was like, how do you not put all these great people
And
on there?
then your problem there was disrespecting, because this person is just as great as that person,
right?
And you can't give a biography, then so
right. Yeah, so sometimes you do have to, be a little wordy, but if you can try, like, back there, Greater Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce, that jumps right out at you. It's clean, it's bright, it grabs you, and then you have some wording below that. But right away you can see, that's what we're looking for, is making your message clean, sharp, and eye-catching. Always, sometimes we go for the big fancy designs, and sometimes the simplicity is what gets you. I look at business cards, a bit of an aside, but small, teeny tiny fonts, you can't really read them. They're trying to be all fancy, but then they don't come across well because it's there's just too much wording on it. Other ones that I think are memorable, I remember Rock Paper Simple, and they did that clear one, remember? And that was the only one I had seen that had kind of this clear, they had their logo on that. It was orange, it was bright. Some of the things that stick in your mind are the ones that are a little different.
So keep your flyer. You want people to register. You may not have a website. You might not have an office or a secretary that can answer a phone. So let's start with the phone. Either you're having an event, you don't have a lot of resources, call this number. But you do have a person that's answering that number, taking information and processing. Maybe you have a website. So from reading a printed flyer, maybe it's an email or something. If it's electronic and you have a website, it's a click. And make sure that the click actually works, and then test it again, and then call your mom and have her click it and test it. Just make sure, because that's huge. For me, because I have so many windows open on my laptop. If I see an event and it's like a squirrel to me, like, what? And click. And if it pops, all of a sudden, that's where I'm at. If I click and it doesn't, it's gone. And then I just completely forgot about it because I'm on something else.
Well, yeah, you want to make sure you have a website, even if you can get inexpensive ones from GoDaddy. There really isn't a reason not to have a website. So even if you're a small sole proprietor and you want to do an event, they $9.95, I think they've got them for. Really, it's
or partner with someone. Go.
That could be your negotiation.
Local chamber of commerce and say, do you have any website designers?
Right.
They're probably up and coming, and then you strike a deal, an in-kind relationship. Like, they get exposure if you allow them to do your website, and then you grow it.
And websites, when you're going that way, can be rather expensive. But if you're doing it just for an event, you can have WordPress, which is very inexpensive, easy to navigate. Just have your information on there about the event, some pictures, and the click to go. And that's all you really need. I think sometimes we try and complicate things way more than they need to be. And Tom is definitely right. Most people will lose their attention if they have to do more than 2 clicks max kind of thing. So you don't want them to have to search into your site to register. You want it to be easy. You click here, it gets you right to the page they have to fill out, because people are important, and their time is important, and they don't want to take the time to search. And so half the time they then wonder about your website. And we've had, and everybody does have challenges. Sometimes your site goes down, and we've had some of our members call us, we can't get in, so we can register for them. But you want to make sure, like Tom said, keep checking your website periodically to make sure it's
you can
working.
even prompt that, your website. I used to do some events where I would think, I want an attendance of 300, but I really think I'm only going to get 100. Mm-hmm. So I would make a setting that once I had 100 attendees, the website would freeze. So then, a month might go by, and I'd get these frantic phone calls from people like, Tom, it's broke. And I would just go, that just means we're at 100. Right. And then you just go back and fix it. But that was an automatic prompt to me, like, look, it's working. And then you may be guaranteeing food and things based on that number. So These are all things you work in electronically. Let the electronics work for you to tell you what's going on. It's going to save you money in the long run.
Right. And you want to make sure it's mobile friendly. Everybody is doing everything on their phone. So you want to check on your phone. I came in Monday because I'd been checking the Palm Bay Chamber's website, and I was like, man, I can't even find where our calendar is. So that's one of the things that everybody, periodically, you need to look at your own websites, your own graphics, what's going on, and making sure that they work. So that was one of the things that actually came up for me, was that, okay, that's not all that friendly. So everything needs to be mobile now. Unfortunately, that is just how it is. And it's just
and a
continuing.
mobile calendar, mobile website is going to be different than a laptop versus
Right.
so realize that it's going to look a little different and act a little different. And so if someone is calling you to complain, it's not doing this, it's not doing that, ask that question. Are you looking on your phone? Well, no, it's because on the phone it does this. You have to go onto an actual laptop, or whatever the fancy word for laptop is nowadays. Do they have home computers now? I don't even know what you call them.
I don't know. But I think that with most sites now, they are mobile friendly, like they merge the two together. But you have to make sure of that, because sometimes that doesn't happen. And so you've got this massive picture and you only, it's cut off on your phone and you see the middle part and not with the whole wording. Kind of like Facebook, sometimes when people put pictures on there instead of scaling it to it so you don't see all the wording, that's not good. So you want to make sure that, because social media is so important nowadays, it just is how everything is going. So you want to make sure that it is working well. And that's the next thing, is coming to publicity for your event. So once again, you are wanting free publicity if you can. So having your press releases, making sure that your logo is on everything. I remember when I first got to the chamber, there was something we were doing, and I said, our logo isn't even on this. Like, you wouldn't even know this was our event. And so those are sometimes the things that having another set of eyes to look at what you're doing is always really important.
And I would tell you two things. I would tell you either my staff has an oversight and they're not paying attention, or maybe I have someone on my staff that has a different agenda and they don't want the logo on there. So.
Right. And sometimes it's just, you forgot, or I had sent out to somebody, it was Founders Forum, and I said, the price isn't on here. Oh, so they oversight on their part. Another time, because when I notice things, because I know if I have something wrong, I want people to tell me. So on somebody else's, I said, oh, you don't have the date and time on there. Okay, huge oversight.
So get a printed draft and walk around the people's offices. Respect that they may be working on. Don't just drop it on them and say, read this, and then stand there and tap your foot, because they're going to just skim it.
Right.
Give them a little bit of time, and
that's true.
Or go to the barbershop or go somewhere, get other people to look at it, and maybe you'll see that the price isn't on there.
Or have a Sandy, who's a great proofreader.
Is this a chamber event? What is this? Or what's the location? Or what we said when we had the wrong road on, and we had the line, the address and everything, but it was the wrong road.
Right.
So, and when people were GPSing it, they went to a different place.
Yeah, so very important. So somebody proofreads your stuff. So then getting back to publicity, then you want to put together a media list, and most are looking for stories. So whether it's Florida Today, you've got Hometown News, you've got Beachside, the Beachsider, there's the Merritt Islands map, you've got Senior Scene, Vieira Voice, the Boomer Guide, everythingbrevard.com, and they've got a magazine now. You've got Space Coast Media, who has Space Coast Living, Space Coast Business. So knowing who your target market is will really help to who you are reaching out your message to. Parents Magazine, if it's a children's event, and then kind of getting it onto radio sometimes, or billboards. That might not be what you need at all if it's a small event with 10 people. Obviously not who you're reaching out to.
Have some printed copies with you, and when you go to events, drop them on the table, put them at the registration area, or ask, can I put these here?
Yeah, and if you're networking at events, always have them with you. I said, man, do I ever go to an event and I'm not handing something out? I had postcards for every event I did. I would be like, make sure, like, I wouldn't be just, I'd be handing them to people, not, disrespecting and putting things just on the table, but I would be handing them out to everybody. And that was one of the ways that I would market my events, and I always had them with me.
That's important, because you don't want to just walk in the door and start promoting your event, because you're going to be disrespecting sponsors or venues or people. So make sure you get permission.
Right.
And not only might you get permission, but then they might actually promote it as well.
Right.
And take that up to the podium, and now they have someone talking to 100 people that you didn't expect in the first place, just because you took a little bit of time to ask.
Right. Right. And so when you're doing your press release, that's kind of the basics to start with. And that has all your stuff, your who, what, where, when, why, how it's relevant to the media outlet that you're sending it to, so why it's important for them to promote your event. And there's lots of sites where you can go now and you fill in your event, and then they choose whether they want to put it on. Like Channel 13, they always have community calendar. I'm sure they're inundated with thousands of events, but you never know when you fill that out if yours might be the one that's chosen. So, doing the different venues that might get your word out.
They need that like 30, 60 days in advance.
That's the thing too, is preparation is the key for any event. And I think sometimes what happens is we get caught on this treadmill of, okay, what's the next event? What's the next, especially at the chamber, we have a lot of them, let's just face it. So, you just finished one and then you're on to the next one and you didn't take the time to plan it. So then we're kind of in that, okay, where rather than if we did it the 6 months out, you have 6 months to have been able to talk about it. And life doesn't always work that way, and we get that. But the further event in advance you can plan an event, the more time you have to think and promote it and really get people talking about it. Like I know for the Zontas, they have their chocolate festival. They have the date of their next one the following year at the event that year. So they'll tell you, okay, next year it's March, whatever, and the venue, because they know when it is.
So that's your sliding 365-day calendar.
Yes.
The event you're working on that day, you're actually working on next year as well.
Right.
Because you're planning, you're taking notes, and then anything else that's in between that. Yeah, if you can knock out any kind of detail of an event that's 6 months out, 9 months out, whether it be the type of forks they're going to be or the musician, you knock it out, write it down, have a little folder, musician taken care of, and then keep doing what you're doing that day or that month. And then you might get a Monday where you're kind of just not really in the mood for anything, but hey, wait, I got an event in 9 months. What can I do? Open it. Hey, let's go ahead and knock out the parking problem. Boom, 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 done. And then you fold it, put it away, and then you work on the event that's a month from now, but you're slowly knocking out pieces that are in the future.
Right. And having, there's lots of resources. So you can go online, like a project manager. So it'll, kind of give you what you need to be doing 6 months out, 5 months out, 4 months, the week out, and you plan your timeline, and then who's responsible. You want to have what the actions are, who's responsible, when they need to be done by.
Thing, the big thing, food,
right?
Date and time. Those are the easy things.
But even your media, because if you don't plan your media, then you think, okay, why didn't we get exposure? Well, you didn't send it out to anyone. How many Twitter posts did you have? How many Facebook posts did you have? And then you have things like Hootsuite, where you can combine them all together, so the message gets sent out all at one time to those different outlets. Getting it on Instagram. So. A lot of times we spin our wheels because we don't use some really great resources that are out there that can kind of make our life easier. And really having a planning schedule where you have everything written down. And then once you do an event, you can repurpose that planning schedule for every event you do. Just it changes up a bit, but you can then that's always your basis for, okay. And then you realize, okay, we're starting this 3 weeks out. It should have been 3 months out.
And yeah, this is all proactive to an event, but again, be post-active to an event, if that's a word. If what worked, what didn't work, write that stuff down.
Right.
And then if you're doing a second annual, third annual, 10th annual, kind of have a notebook of things that went wrong, read them and tell your staff and talk about it and say, this can't happen again.
Right.
And then slowly, by the time you have your 11th annual, you've knocked it out. And it's perfect.
Right. Yeah, postmortems are very, very important because you can learn something from any event that you do. And if you don't take the time to discuss the great things that were fabulous that you want to repeat, things that could have been better, and then things that were like, we don't want to repeat that, then, your next year's event could be a problem. So especially
take good, honest notes.
Yes, absolutely.
If it dorked up,
right,
because it was your fault, write it.
Right.
Hey, or if it messed up because of a hurricane or a vendor, be honest with that. Because someone else might be reading that and go, why didn't that work? This doesn't make sense.
And you forget. I mean, literally, if you do a lot of events or, it's a year later, you forget all that happened. Or if you've done them multiple times, I get mine mixed up because it was like, okay, that was the year before. And so, taking really good follow-up notes on it.
A lot of times that would be the first thing I would read if I'm starting an event, an annual event. So an
Yeah.
event's over,
Mhm.
the event, I do my recap the day after. I'll start a folder next year, and then take that recap and put it in a file cabinet. And then 6 months goes by, and suddenly I'm like, okay, let's plan the event. Where do I start? Open the folder. Oh, this is my recap of last year. And then that just sparks you to just start planning that next
one. Right. Right. Yeah. It's always easier when you have a place to start than starting from scratch. It just, I think we all know that. Yeah, doing so many events, it's kind of like, because then they just are in your head, you can just, which is really not good either for somebody following you. But, that was one of my things. I had done an event for 10 years. So by the time the 10th year was coming along, I mean, everybody knew their jobs. They knew when to come. Our basket makers were ready to go and that kind of thing. But I didn't have to write that down. But that's not helpful for the next people coming in, because then they didn't have any of those resources to know.
Right.
So yeah, you want to make sure that you write things down, that you are thinking of it as a legacy. And so even if it's a small little event, so let's say you're doing an event and it's a lunch and learn, you are expecting 10 people to come, you have that many signed up and 2 show up. Okay, well, you want to take notes. What the weather was like, what else might have been going on, was the venue a problem, did you have an issue with the audio visual, or things weren't working, or
was there a major accident on I-4?
Right, all these kind of things, because that way you don't think, oh man, I failed. It could be other things that happened that precipitated the low turnout. I think sometimes we beat ourselves up, thinking, oh man, that didn't work, but you think, well, really what you accomplished. And you have to look at that as well. Maybe we want to have 300 people at our every event we have. Well, that's not realistic. And so looking at, was it a first time event? How many people did we reach? Did we reach any of our goals? Was it great for our sponsors? Was it great for the venue? The people that attended, what was the word of mouth from them? That's always
But even there in that
too.
scenario, even if you go back to the keynote speaker thought, if you have a lunch and learn and there's 10 people registered, obviously you want to know, are they going to be there? But
Right.
you kind of don't want to call them and say, hey, are you still coming?
Right.
So come up with a reason to call them or email them and say, hey, by the way, did you know that parking is going to be, here that day? Or, just any reason to get a response. And then of the 10, maybe 6 will come back with, yeah, I knew that, thanks.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, I know I got 6 coming.
Well, and sometimes it's okay to call them. I mean, just to say, I just calling to remind you about our event tomorrow that you had signed up for. Are you still able to come? We're planning. And, when you tell people, oh, we're planning a bit of food or refreshments, we want to make sure we have enough. They understand that. I mean, some people have never planned events and they think that they can RSVP like, an hour before the event. Not helpful.
Or just show up.
Yeah, or just show up.
Don't you know who I am? Come on, let me in.
I know, isn't that one of our biggest things? It's like, if you have a food involved, we need a count a week ahead of time. But okay, another topic. But yeah, so I think it's okay sometimes to call and remind people. And we are so busy now that, sometimes you forget to put it on your calendar, or you signed up, a month ago, and then it's like, oh man, other things came up. But it's, letting people know. And I think sometimes, yeah, as a host, if it's a smaller one, you can call and see if they're going to come, and they won't be offended by that. It's really just a nudge to remind them. So I think that, one of the important things then is the ticketing part of it. So whether you're choosing to, because we're moving along this event path, to have actual tickets, which it can be costly unless they're the ones they can print out, or you're just having where people sign up and you get them on the registration list and they're fine. Most people now print off their receipt, so if there's any issue at the desk, they can show that they paid. But tickets, you have to choose when you're doing an event what you want to do. I think a lot are just now everything's electronic, but sometimes you want to be able to sell a ticket or have them handy, because then, if you tell a person about the event, are they going to go back to their computer after this event and sign up for it? Or if I have a ticket in my hand that they can buy for $10, will they buy it right away? So that's a choice to make as well. You have to make sure, obviously, you have responsible people. If there's money involved, that, you've got control of that. That's a huge problem with some nonprofits, is controlling the money.
It's being consistent with how you say that word too, because tickets is an obvious fallback. And
right.
Let's say you're working with a sponsor that might have a corporate office not near you, and so local people are coming, and you say, okay, you have 8 tickets to the event. Well, the takeaway is tangible tickets.
Right.
So
right.
that person might show up or start asking, and then you're getting, or your staff's getting, well, where's my ticket? And then in reality, it's just registration. So we'll go back to the beginning and say, you have 8 people registered.
Right.
And it just puts a whole new perspective on the expectation of that guest.
Right. And I think that's one of the things we still do, just because it's, and in our vernacular, we always say tickets. Oh, you get 2 tickets to the event. Well,
admissions.
You're right. It's
vague.
Yes, a little more vague. But that's true, because people are like, well, where's my ticket? Oh, I remember I had that with my other event I used to do, and we say, oh, tickets are online. Well, I haven't received my tickets yet. Saying, oh no, you're on the guest list, you're good to go. But changing that,
which kind of makes you look disheveled, and it's to get it right at the beginning.
Right. Absolutely. And then one of the things that you always have to think about is pricing. So, you want to, like we said, under promise and over deliver always. So you have to look at what you think, first of all, what it's going to cost you. What the venue, when you add everything together with the venue, the marketing, if you're giving away swag bags, what everything is going to cost you a net.
The food, the water.
Absolutely.
The microphones.
Yes, if that's not included, what it is, and then divide it out by how many people you expect. So you make sure you're covering all your costs. And then you want to look at the value of what you're providing. So how much could you add on top of that you're going to have the turnout you want? So do you want to charge a lot more so it's more exclusive, or do you want to charge a little bit less and have more people? Or do you want it free? Can you get sponsors that can cover the event so that you don't have to worry about people paying a huge amount? So those are the things that you kind of want to think about. We are looking at our events for next year. So sometimes we've charged for events, and it's like, okay, well, if we made it free, we know we'd obviously get a lot more people. Does that help us or hurt us? What's the purpose of why we're doing this? And can we do this for free? What's another event we might do where we are charging, but there's so much value in it? We want to make sure that, we are getting what the value the event is worth.
Back where you're saying about, the cost of the event. We could talk for hours on that, but let's just say, food, ambiance, entertainment, divided by your expected number of attendees, which equates back into what you're guaranteeing the venue to serve the food for. I mean, once you kind of get that number, you either get a price that is 1 cent more. So you guarantee that if I buy a ticket, or a guest buys a ticket, you're at least making a penny. Right. Can it be $1 more? At least I'm making $1. Or so you're driving your income expense, I'm recouping my cost on admission. Or you kind of throw that to the side for a second and you get a sponsor. So you do 100 people times X. I need Y amount of dollars, and you get a sponsor to say, I'll cover it. And now your expenses are covered by that sponsor dollars. Now you're back to your admission, so it could be free.
Right.
I'll get a lot of people there, and that would be cool. Is that your driver? Is that what you want?
Right.
Or do I want to make money? Okay, do I want 5 or 10? Do I want to just say, hey, you know what, it's free, but there'll be a bucket in the middle of the table, and you might get more money when you don't charge? So there's so many different ways of looking at that.
Right. When I look at different organizations, the Boy Scouts have their annual dinner that has table hosts, and they invite 10 people, or with themselves 9 people, to come for free. So you get a fabulous dinner, but then there's an ask to give. So knowing that is their model, that when you are asked, that there will be, an expectation at the end that you will be donating something for the Boy Scouts. That's one model. And
in that case, don't write a BS number, because they will come back.
Oh,
and say,
yes, they'll.
You missed a digit on your credit card. Okay.
Yeah, no, and it's knowing what the venue is and why you're going, and what the value is of it. And then there's ways to kind of increase your sales. So having things like limited space, or almost sold out, sale ending soon. So if you want to have a price, let's say
limited time,
or up until this date the price is cheaper, and then after that it goes up. So a lot of people then kind of look at those and make sure they get their ticket ahead of time. You can have a higher price at the door, so you're motivating more people to tell you ahead of time. And then sometimes kind of sending that out. So on Facebook, letting them know that it's a call to action. You want them to buy the ticket right away. So saying, oh, there's a, we're getting close to selling out, or time is limited to get this special, people are more likely then to respond immediately.
It's kind of hard for a first time event,
yes,
for everything you just said, because you don't know.
Right.
So kind of,
right.
what did you say? Expect the worst, over deliver. But
Mm-hmm.
but if you have a second year, third year, you kind of know who's going to come. You already know who you've already spoken with.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you check your registration and you start seeing new names registered, you're like, oh, I've reached a new audience. And then you know that you're growing after that.
But you will know, I mean, no matter where you hold it, you're going to have a limited number of possible attendees. The hotels can only accommodate so many. If you have it in a business location like our chamber, you can't have 100 people here. We can't hold that many. So your event does have a max capacity for anything that you're doing. So,
which is a catch-22, because
yes.
You can either say, gee, I could have got more money if I had a bigger place.
Right.
Or you market it next year and say, well, last year we sold out. Well,
right.
We were in a closet, but hey, but we sold out.
Yeah, you were in the hall. We're sorry, but yeah. So, but that's part of the buzz then, so that people have that excitement for the following year, knowing that they need to then get their ticket earlier because the event has the potential of selling out. There's a lot of things to think about, and we've talked about a bit. More about larger events, but for small ones, it's the same thing. You're just bringing it down on the scale, because think about it. If you want to have a lunch and learn and you're expecting 10 people to come, and let's say you want to have it at Wild Manta, who is so reasonable, it's like $15, but you might be reaching a target market that a business really wants to get in touch with, and they may give you the $50, which is all you might need to cover the room and some snacks or drinks and that, and then your event is covered. And so looking at those kind of partnerships can seriously make a difference. So, and that may go into a series of events then, because it's so successful. It's
and be open-minded, as we were saying, because if they're going to give the $50 in return, they either might want 2 or 3 minutes at the podium.
Right.
Maybe they don't even want to attend. Maybe they just want their logo on your marketing material.
Right.
Maybe they want whatever. Listen to them. Right. If they're going to give you $50,
right.
Be open-minded and get ready to go back to your staff and kind of change the plan to accommodate that.
Right. And flexibility. That's all I'm saying is flexible. You have to be able to just think, not always linear. Sometimes, and we're kind of guilty of this, and we get talking and we go in these huge circles and then come back, but sometimes you get fabulous ideas out of that. And bouncing ideas off somebody else, because sometimes we think we've got a handle on it and they'll say, wait, have you thought about such and such? So if you can kind of bring a team even to help you, which is also good as well, instead of not doing it all yourself, but also people that are there to support you and to help you. So whether it's your mom or a friend, because then it helps lighten the load, and then you're getting out to twice as many people. So if you reach out to your constituents, as we want to say, either your Facebook friends, hey, can you share this on your page, or it's like they're helping you sell the event as well. Because strategic partnerships, I mean, that's really what the chamber is all about. It's helping you build strategic partnerships with other businesses, with your community, and so that whatever you do can grow exponentially. So that's one of the things that, we're always stressing is you don't have to do it alone, ask for help. And, if we can try and find partners for you, it certainly makes it a lot easier. So that's kind of, I guess, our little synopsis of events. I know we were thinking we have done hundreds of events. It's like, so reach out to us if you have some questions. Normally we're able to do more back and forth, and I didn't know how to get people on here, and I don't really even know where to find them. So I apologize if somebody was wanting to ask questions and we didn't get to you, but call the chamber. We can, definitely respond to anything, and we look forward to seeing you. We'll be here next month, and that is going to be a week earlier. So it's going to be November 14th, and we'll do our 2 to 3 o'clock. And I don't think we have she's got the title Any Place, Any Device, and I'm not sure what all that means, but we'll give you more details. And Shannon is always interesting, so we missed her this month, but looking forward to having her on our chamber chat next month. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Tom, for being part of this. Great experience, so lots of good knowledge here, and we'll say goodbye until next month. Thank you.